The protagonist takes her to a luxurious restaurant in the Sunshine Building. She looks around curiously and quietly asks if it's expensive. He smiles and tells her not to worry, urging her to enjoy the meal. When the waiter arrives with elegant tableware, she politely thanks him but soon lets out a sigh. The boy is puzzled. She admits she still feels it's too much, but he reassures her it's free because the restaurant belongs to his company. Surprised, she asks what he means, and he simply says things are more complicated than they seem and that he's much wealthier than she thinks. Her soft smile catches his attention. When he asks if she thinks he's lying, she denies it and confesses she laughed out of jealousy. Trying to lighten the moment, he suddenly asks when their second date will be, making her blush. Meanwhile, during a car ride, the boy's uncle talks about Japanese groups possibly planning something in Jeju Island. Though the boy insists it's just a school trip, the uncle secretly arranges extra protection. He even sends Rodney, the driver, along. The group soon lands on Jeju Island. Students are excited until the strict teacher scolds them for being noisy and hurries them onto the bus. They finally reach the hotel, stepping into a new phase of their journey. As the school trip continues, the students are guided by their teacher to board the correct bus and return by 3 p.m. While most listen, the protagonist is asleep, unaware of the surroundings. Suddenly, a voice wakes him. It's the girl asking him to take a walk with her. He quickly agrees, smiling. Meanwhile, another student rests on the grass but gets annoyed after noticing a group of students heading somewhere. His irritation grows when he hears rude remarks aimed at the protagonist made by a few unfamiliar students. Elsewhere, another student chats casually with the driver. As the protagonist walks down a staircase with the girl, they're stopped by the same students. One of them begins teasing and speaking rudely, especially towards the girl. Though the protagonist says nothing, his expression shows he's upset. Before anything escalates, the girl steps forward and speaks to them fluently in their own language. She warns them not to act in ways that make people think badly of others from their country. The boys are shocked and try to mock her, but she stays calm, asks the protagonist to leave with her, and they walk away. Later at the park, she reveals she learned the language while living abroad during childhood. The protagonist is impressed but still seems bothered. Claiming he's going to the bathroom, he walks away, but instead of heading there, he returns to the staircase where they were stopped, looking ready for something serious. As everyone was catching their breath from the earlier chaos, sudden noise pulled their attention. 2 Chinese students stormed in, demanding to know who hurt their friends. One of them got ready to strike, but the other stopped him, saying it clearly wasn't them. As they wandered, they found a boy sleeping peacefully. Victor. Thinking they had found the right guy, they surrounded him and kicked him awake. Confused but calm, Victor asked what they were looking for. He stood up slowly, asking again who they thought they were messing with. With a calm smile, he asked if they really wanted a fight. Before anything else, a punch came flying toward one of the boys, hitting him straight in the face and knocking him down. His classmates panicked as Victor casually asked what their friend had just said. Nearby, a strong and silent student was enjoying the scenery when he was suddenly approached. A Chinese boy accused him of hurting his friends and threw a punch. Without even turning around, the strong guy stopped the punch with one hand. Calm and unfazed, he told the attacker he was bored anyway. When the boy demanded his hand be released, the big guy didn't flinch. He blocked again, spun around, and grabbed him from behind. With sheer strength, he lifted him and slammed him down with a powerful wrestling move. The others could only watch stunned. The strong student shouted at them to come if they dared. Later, buses started filling up. While names were being checked, some students were laughing, while one of the beaten ones still looked angry. Then Victor boarded the bus, catching the attention of the protagonist. As he passed, he sat right behind him. Soon after, the big guy entered too, adding more tension and mystery for the protagonist. While the protagonist trains hard with push-ups, one of the boys nearby senses something strange. A silent observer catches his attention. When asked, the man gives a vague answer, leaving the boy puzzled but amused. He shrugs it off, puts his headphones back on, and continues as if nothing happened. Elsewhere in the hotel, the driver and a teacher seem tense. She scolds a student for smoking and questions his behavior, disappointed because she expected better from him. But when the boy shows her an ID card from 1991, she's shocked to learn he's actually 27, 3 years older than her. He explains with a heavy heart that his difficult family life forced him to leave school early, but he still wants to learn. As he gently holds her hand and asks for forgiveness, she blushes and agrees, caught off guard by his sincere plea. Outside, the driver watches through the window while a child nearby notices something odd about the man. That night in Jeju, a group sits in a karaoke minibar. Their boss, angry and drinking, mocks the local drinks and scolds his men for losing to some kids. Enraged, he throws a bottle at one of them, demanding they bring the boy to him the next day. His eyes burn with fury, reminding them of the uniform they wear and the responsibility that comes with it. Later, at a restaurant, the tired driver meets a man named Josh, also known as Joe, from a powerful organization. Joe asks about a missing man named Jab, but the driver dodges the question, saying there are other reasons. Joe changes the subject and invites him to sit and eat. While chatting during the drive, the protagonist's companion casually mentions how nice it must be to live somewhere with such good food. But the man sitting with them suddenly smiles in a strange way. He says the city was once peaceful, but now things are changing. Outsiders are trying to take over. The Chinese influence is creeping in, and there's a lot going on beneath the surface. Hearing this, the driver stays quiet, sensing there's more behind those words. The man then reveals that a powerful group, known for using wealth and influence to control things, is trying to expand into their area. There haven't been any major incidents yet, but tension is building. When the protagonist wonders why they don't inform the higher-ups, the man explains it isn't official and things are still under the radar. But the most surprising part, their leader is already here, hiding in plain sight during this school trip. Though some think it's just a normal field trip, the man insists things could change at any moment. He casually invites the driver for a drink, just to relax for a moment. The driver agrees reluctantly. Meanwhile, at the hotel, buses arrive and students gather. Among them is a student from the outsider group secretly talking on the phone. He tells someone he's found a target and plans to follow them. As the trip moves forward, the teacher announces they'll hike up Mount Hison, a 5-hour journey. The students complain, but she warns them not to wander off. As the buses stop at the base, everyone gets off. Some stretch, some look tired already. At the same time, a man watches them from a nearby car, reporting their movements quietly. As the hike begins, the atmosphere lightens. Laughter and chatter fill the air. The protagonist walks with his friends, including Sophie. But the presence of the other group lingers in the background. Just as things seem normal, a large group suddenly appears ahead, catching everyone's attention. The fight reached a new level of intensity. The opponent tried to strike again, but failed, giving the protagonist a brief opening. He moved fast, aiming to hit back, but the large man dodged. With sharp movements, he spun and aimed another blow, coming dangerously close. Then, with his other hand, he went for the head. But instead of being scared, the protagonist laughed. That laughter sent chills through the opponent. With a firm grip, he stopped the strike midair and asked in a wild tone, "Is that all you've got?" At that moment, Kim and the driver arrived to watch. Kim was amazed by the intensity, while Bob, observing nearby, revealed that the fighter once nearly defeated someone named Peter. This shocked Kim. The driver explained it happened 2 years ago. Hearing this, Kim quietly focused back on the fight, knowing it was becoming more serious. Angry, the opponent broke free and went for the protagonist's wrist, trying to counter. But before the punch could land, the protagonist held onto the man's jacket and closed the distance. Without warning, he slammed his head forward, making the man stumble back in pain. The protagonist stepped in to finish it, but was suddenly interrupted. A foot came flying toward his face. He quickly ducked and rolled away. Surprised, he turned to see a new man wearing sunglasses. Calmly, the stranger told his injured companion to step aside. But the big guy refused, still burning with pride, saying he couldn't lose to someone from Korea. The air became heavy with tension. As the protagonist asked who the newcomer was, the man simply dodged without answering. As the protagonist sits in class, he notices a strange look on the new girl's face. Sophie also realizes she's been watching him. Confused and slightly jealous, she wonders if this new girl is already interested in him. The girl, catching Sophie's gaze, returns it with a smug smile that makes Sophie uneasy. Wanting to break the tension, Sophie suddenly suggests they head to the cafeteria for something tasty. The unexpected move leaves the protagonist puzzled, but they both exit the classroom. The new girl stays behind, calmly watching them leave. Outside, a car pulls up. 2 men, Bob and Kim, sit smoking quietly. They talk about how they don't have much of a choice and recall how upset the protagonist was when he found out bodyguards had been assigned to his class. He had them removed immediately. Kim sadly says at least he can now stay with the driver, and they both laugh, moving on to other topics. Kim then asks Bob why he insisted on going to school. Bob's curious expression shows he might know something deeper. Back at the school courtyard, the new girl approaches Sophie and greets her warmly, saying she's been looking for her. She asks if they can be friends, admitting she's new to the country. Sophie nervously agrees. When the girl boldly asks if the boy beside her is her boyfriend, Sophie stammers. The protagonist confidently says yes, surprising her. Curious, the girl asks if it's true, and he walks away blushing, claiming he has something else to do. Sophie silently recalls his bold declaration. Later that night at a cozy cafe, his mother questions where he's been. He casually replies he was on a school trip, though she already knows. After drinking his coffee, he calls her over for something. The protagonist walks away after the intense talk, while the man behind him quietly smiles. Somewhere else, tension rises on a rooftop. Akira feels anxious under the cold gaze of a powerful woman who demands to be taken to the leader. Meanwhile, the protagonist drags through a dull school day, barely staying awake as lessons pass and teachers switch. When it's over, he finally heads out, tired and mentally drained. At the car, his driver asks where to go, and he replies that he wants to visit his mother's cafe. But when they arrive, a strange sign on the door says it's closed for personal reasons. Worried, he tries calling her, but the number can't be reached, leaving him uneasy. Back with the woman and Akira, the girl leads her to a guarded area. When questioned, the woman refuses to waste time, knocks out 2 guards in an instant, and walks into a room where a man in a tattooed kimono awaits, demanding answers. The woman moved with sharp precision, ducking low and sweeping her attacker's legs, launching him into the air. Spotting the fallen knife nearby, she kicked it hard, sending it straight into the chest of the man with the gun. Without hesitation, she struck down another with a sword, blood covering her, but her expression cold and silent. At last, she spoke. Her voice, low and chilling, filled the air with fear as she warned she would cut down anyone who dared stop her. Elsewhere, 2 men sat at a table. One, with blonde hair, questioned why they weren't drinking like old times. But the other, a strict prosecutor, brushed it off, refusing to mix business with friendship. Their talk turned serious. The blonde man spoke of his brother losing control of their school to a group of criminals. The prosecutor insisted nothing illegal could be proven, but the man hinted he had already sent someone strong from Japan to handle things, someone who wouldn't play by the rules. Late at night in the Sunshine Group's office, the uncle sat quietly, his eyes fixed ahead as if lost in thought. Suddenly, the phone rang. When he picked it up, he was surprised to hear Joey on the line, only to realize something was wrong. Joey was being held by a bald man. Another man then grabbed the phone and delivered a clear threat. If they didn't hand over the man who had attacked his brother, the entire group would be ruined. Furious, the uncle demanded to know who he was speaking to. The reply came he was John Lee, leader of the Mandoas. But the uncle didn't back down. He warned that if they ever dared to touch Joey again, they wouldn't leave Korea alive. The tension crackled over the phone line. Elsewhere, in the schoolyard, a calm silence hung in the air as a bird landed on a tree. Inside the classroom, few students had arrived when a girl named Akira entered. The protagonist stood and walked toward her, asking to talk. They climbed the stairs quietly while Sophie followed, hiding and eavesdropping from behind the rooftop door. There, the protagonist questioned how Akira ended up at his mother's cafe. Nervously, she avoided the truth. When he pressed her, she finally broke down and said it was because his mother was causing problems. Both he and Sophie were stunned. Sophie then appeared, calling out his name, adding more confusion to the rooftop tension. Meanwhile, back at the dojo, another man arrived and noticed something strange. There was no one guarding the entrance. As the fight intensifies, the protagonist swiftly moves near his opponent, wearing a dark grin. While the kendo club leader struggles to keep up, a figure watches quietly from the sidelines. It's Jason, clearly annoyed at his team's poor coordination, muttering that he warned them to attack together. Just then, someone appears beside him, Bob, who firmly reminds Jason this is the same gym their boss once used. Jason's face stiffens with fear. Kim stands nearby, calmly watching, saying he enjoys watching such fights. Back at the center of the chaos, the protagonist delivers a powerful punch that shatters his opponent's wooden sword. As the opponent falls, another student from Taekwondo launches a surprise flying kick, but the protagonist easily dodges it. He accidentally bumps into the head of the wrestling club, Damien, who grabs him roughly, mocking the idea that they're here to play games. This provokes the protagonist. Without hesitation, he slams his head backward, smashing Damien's nose and flings him straight at the other fighter, who barely manages to dodge his teammate's crashing body. Before anyone can react, Seth charges in and lands a devastating punch to Gabe's face, dropping him instantly. The remaining 2 fighters, the heads of the judo and kendo clubs, freeze in fear. Even Jason watches in disbelief. Meanwhile, Kim and Bob laugh as they recall the protagonist's past fights, how he once broke every tooth in an opponent's mouth and left another nearly crying. They remember the time he defeated a knife-wielding fighter while still smaller than now, amazed by how much more dangerous he's become. The room was tense as the leader mocked the company behind the protagonist, calling it small despite its reputation in Korea. But the uncle, calm yet firm, challenged him directly. He warned that if the leader wanted conflict, he'd get it. The leader demanded the boy who had beaten his brother, not knowing the truth staring him in the face. Removing his glasses, the uncle revealed his injured face, saying the boy he wanted was the same one who had done this to him. That stunned the man, but his pride flared. He said if the uncle wanted a chance, he'd have to defeat 2 fighters first, his trusted bald twins, Jae and Ho. Without a word, the uncle prepared himself. As both charged at once, aiming a punch and a strike, the attacks had no effect. The uncle didn't even flinch. Furious, he landed a crushing blow to one of them, sending him flying. Then, in a flash, he grabbed the other by the throat and lifted him effortlessly. Despite having the chance to finish him, the uncle chose not to, tossing him aside with power. Watching all this, the leader clapped slowly, stunned by the strength before him. Then he stepped forward, eyes locked with the uncles as the air grew heavier between them. The protagonist reached the cinema, slightly embarrassed, wondering if he had kept her waiting. But the girl kindly smiled and assured him it was fine. They chatted lightly and looked through movie posters, trying to decide what to watch. She held one about a kitten while he had one called Witch. She softly suggested the kitten movie since she liked cats, and he quietly agreed. Just then, someone called her name. She looked up, surprised it was her father. He appeared calm but carried a strange intensity. She asked why he was there. Smiling, he invited them to skip the movie and go eat instead. Though unsure, they went with him. At the restaurant, he told his daughter to relax and eat freely. She nervously asked why he was being so kind. With a warm yet unreadable smile, he said he just wanted to meet her boyfriend. His words made her drop her gaze. The table fell silent as tension rose. The man's stare unsettled both of them, and even strangers nearby felt the strange vibe. To ease the air, he asked them to start eating. Back at the temple, the girl sat alone, clearly nervous. A man passed by, trying to catch a glimpse of her face, but she avoided him. When he circled back again, fear filled her eyes. She whispered to herself, unsure where she even was. Meanwhile, deeper inside the temple, an old man quietly prepared for something. Seth, after hiding a crumpled photo, assures the girl that her father had to leave unexpectedly but quickly suggests they still go watch the movie. Excited, the girl happily agrees and they enjoy the film together. Afterward, she thanks him and says goodbye, heading home alone. Seth, feeling something is off, tries to call his uncle at the hospital, but the call goes unanswered. Frustrated, he asks his driver, Bob, to identify the people in the photo. Bob reveals that they are members of the infamous three-headed phantom gang, with the leader being Miduki Ryanoso. Meanwhile, in a separate scene, an old man reflects on recent events, including the defeat of 2 Chinese leaders. His son, confused, learns that the real problem isn't the gang, but a powerful woman connected to the Sunshine Group. The old man advises his son to avoid Korea for now, leaving him uneasy. Back at school, Seth recalls a warning from his father-in-law about the danger to Sunshine. He grows increasingly irritated by the situation. Selma, observing him, is concerned, and a mysterious figure keeps an eye on Seth. As Seth notices something strange, the story builds tension, hinting at the challenges ahead. The protagonist receives a phone call from the principal asking him to meet at the gym before lunch ends. The protagonist feels uneasy and quickly heads to the gym, with the girl watching him worriedly. At the gym, the principal and Brock are already there, with Brock demanding a rematch. The protagonist, unimpressed, remains silent as Brock is eager to fight. Victor steps in, taunting the protagonist, but he remains calm, saying he's ready for the fight. The principal offers gloves, but the protagonist refuses, claiming they're unnecessary. The fight begins with Brock charging at the protagonist. However, the protagonist easily dodges Brock's attacks, surprising everyone, including Brock. The fight is intense, with the protagonist landing a strong punch that sends Brock stumbling. Despite Brock's resilience, the protagonist continues to dodge and counter. The principal observes nervously, recalling Brock's past victories and wondering who the protagonist really is. As the fight progresses, the protagonist continues to land powerful strikes, with Brock struggling to keep up. The principal steps in to stop the fight when the bell rings, but the protagonist, excited by the challenge, mocks Brock, promising that they'll meet again soon. Meanwhile, Victor watches the fight in silence, clearly nervous about the outcome. Elsewhere, a man with a scar prepares for something, suggesting more trouble ahead. The protagonist's calm demeanor shifts as a group of henchmen arrives outside the school. The leader of the group, a bald man, steps out of the car with a smile, signaling the start of their mission. Bob, who is silently observing, senses something is wrong when they bypass the school. The henchmen quickly disembark and move into action. Bob, who had been smoking, approaches and confronts the bald man, forcing a face-to-face encounter. A tense standoff ensues, with Bob remaining composed even as the henchman grows nervous. Things quickly escalate as Bob reveals a weapon and prepares for the fight. He leaps toward the bald man but miscalculates his jump and ends up on the ground. Meanwhile, Kim, who is inside the school, gets a message from his boss's driver informing him that the henchmen have arrived. Kim acts calmly, even using charm to excuse himself from class. In the gym, Brock and Victor are discussing their next moves when the door is suddenly kicked down by another group of henchmen. They search the school for the protagonist and offer a reward for information. Brock and Victor challenge the men, but the tension grows as Kim appears, ready to defend his friend. The scene intensifies as the confrontation reaches its peak. The mobster walks in with his gang, smiling and asking if he's the new principal. The principal stands up, shocked, but the mobster quickly takes control of the situation. One of his henchmen teleports behind the principal, forcing him back into his chair. The mobster then pulls out a photo, demanding the principal bring a boy named Seth Kong immediately or face dire consequences. The principal attempts to call the police, but the mobster warns him against it. Meanwhile, at the school boxing gym, Brock, a student, faces off against a man with a baseball bat. Without hesitation, Brock knocks him out with a punch. The other henchmen, armed with knives, rush at him, but Brock fights back fiercely, with Victor joining in. As Brock and Victor defeat the thugs, Kim continues to battle more of them, easily dodging attacks and landing fatal blows. Rodney, their colleague, arrives to assist, laughing in the face of danger. Back in the classroom, Seth hears the chaos and decides to investigate. He finds Kim in a dangerous fight, surrounded by henchmen. Spotting a fire extinguisher, Seth uses it to create a cloud of smoke, disorienting the thugs. He takes advantage of the confusion, knocking out the leader and leaving the henchmen in chaos. The battle rages on as Seth shows no fear, facing the situation with excitement. The protagonist and his allies continue their fierce battle against the remaining henchmen, with the protagonist growing increasingly nervous as things spiral out of control. His subordinate apologizes, but the protagonist insists that the situation has gone too far and insists on taking the fight outside. Meanwhile, Bob, handling things his way outside the school, easily defeats the remaining enemies with little effort, his nonchalance and power evident as he effortlessly knocks out opponents. As the group moves through the school corridor, they are met by Brock and Victor, who have also wiped out their opponents. However, the mood shifts when Miduki Inusuk, a leader of the powerful three-headed Phantom Gang, appears. Tensions rise as the protagonist and Inusuk face off, with Inusuk boasting about his need to take the head of the Sunshine Group. However, before the fight can escalate, Inusuk introduces Kyle, the #1 fighter in Japan, who attacks with blinding speed, shocking even the protagonist. Outside, a police officer arrives at the school but quickly realizes something is wrong as he notices unconscious henchmen scattered around. The situation intensifies when a black plane arrives carrying David Lee, a powerful figure from the Sunshine Group. More vehicles and gang members arrive, escalating the conflict. The police are left nervous and unsure of how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, the protagonist's confrontation with the formidable new fighter begins to heat up. The teacher tells the students to get back to work, but one records the scene while another mentions the police are on site. Annoyed, the teacher is interrupted when Sophie approaches, asking to join the group outside due to her concern for Seth. Meanwhile, Seth is locked in a fierce fight with his opponent. He finally catches his opponent's wrist, preparing for a counter-strike, but his opponent dodges the move in an almost Matrix-like fashion. The two prepare for another round of attacks. Seth's quick reflexes allow him to evade a kick and punch from the fighter. As the fight intensifies, Uncle Jake's helicopter lands in front of the school, drawing everyone's attention. Seth is greeted with respect by his subordinates, but the police and others are confused. The mafia members are also stunned when Seth's mother suddenly appears, casting a chilling presence. She orders Jake to escort the injured and clear out the area. Seth, undeterred, asks the mafia to continue their fight, ready for whatever comes next. The intensity of the situation builds, with unexpected twists that leave everyone on edge. The woman tells the protagonist that being a leader means taking responsibility for every fight and not letting emotions control him. This leaves the protagonist in shock, unsure of her intentions. As the tension grows, the mafia leader and his men approach, insulting the woman and questioning her authority. Unfazed, she gives him two choices: either gather his men and leave quietly, or face a fight between the protagonist and the half-bald fighter. The mafia leader refuses to back down, but the woman doesn't hesitate to slice his neck, stepping on his men with ease, sending a clear message. She warns the mafia leader to stay silent, or else she will end his life. Though irritated, he is clearly intimidated. The woman then explains the second option: a fight between the protagonist and the half-bald fighter, with the winner taking everything. Realizing there are cameras, the mafia leader reluctantly agrees. The protagonist is uneasy, remembering his mother's words about relinquishing his position if he failed. The story shifts to Sophie and her teacher, who discover chaos in the school, while the protagonist prepares for his fight, facing his armed opponent with determination. The situation in the classroom is tense as the boy holding the phone insists that the video is real. Suddenly, a bald man named GK Lee enters, declaring that a donkey vlogger shouldn't believe in fake videos. Tensions rise when another man steps forward and asks Lee to move aside. The bald man, irate, challenges the boy, threatening him. However, the situation takes a dramatic turn when a girl with short hair, looking eerily like Sophie, steps in, ordering Lee to leave. The confrontation escalates quickly as the girl draws her weapon and her companion steps in. Together, they overpower Lee with a flawless combination of strikes, leaving him stunned. Meanwhile, one of the students continues watching an old video from 2 years ago featuring Kim. The video shows how much Kim has changed, now with short hair and wearing a prison uniform, revealing that he had been incarcerated. Today, he's finally released, greeted by his colleague, Bob, who drives him away. Upon opening the car door, Kim is shocked to find the protagonist inside, now older and bowing respectfully. The protagonist expresses gratitude, offering Kim a ride back to school where he remarks on how fun it looks. In a far-off dojo, an elderly sensei awakens Jin, who had been sleeping while standing. After a few stern words, the sensei tells Jin to pack his things, hinting that it's time for Jin to attend school. Jin, confused but obedient, heads to the city and is amazed by the architecture. His journey leads him to a new school where he encounters the new teacher, George Wu. The teacher introduces the class, which now focuses on athletics, and is surprised to find that the new student is the same boy from earlier. The meeting with the club leaders takes an unexpected turn when Sophie gathers them to discuss freshman recruitment. Mike, the new captain of the Taekwondo club, expresses his frustration, suggesting they should just beat things up, while Paul, the judo captain, points out the absence of the boxing and martial arts club leaders. The room falls into a tense silence. Sophie, anxious, doesn't speak, but the door suddenly opens, and Victor, the boxing club president and IBF Asian champion, walks in, drenched in sweat from training. He apologizes for being late and takes his seat. Sophie quickly asks about Brock, and Victor explains that Brock is busy preparing for a competition next week. When Sophie reminds him about the freshman recruitment next week, Victor is shocked, admitting he forgot. Mike interrupts, impatiently demanding they get to the point. Sophie then explains that the principal asked for a favor and that's why they're all gathered. She goes on to outline the rules, emphasizing that clubs should not force freshmen to join or enter unnecessary competitions and intense training should be carefully considered. The meeting ends abruptly with Sophie packing up her things. Victor, still sitting at the table, asks Sophie if she's heard from Seth. Sophie, visibly shaken, replies that she hasn't. Victor reassures her, mentioning that Seth promised his mother he would graduate. Sophie, remembering the terrifying encounter with Seth's mother, is visibly disturbed. After Sophie leaves in a hurry, Victor reflects on the past, remembering Seth's brutal confrontation with a gangster, which had ended with Seth's mother stopping him from going too far. Later, at Seth's mother's house, Jin, staying there, expresses gratitude for the food, which is the first time anyone has cooked for him. However, when the topic of sparring comes up, Jin grows uneasy, sensing something deeper in their relationship. Meanwhile, Sophie arrives home to her father, who asks about her future plans. Sophie admits she's still unsure, leaving her father concerned about her lack of direction.